for a long time, and it's something that's going to help our special education department and our school in general to increase the knowledge of what special education is, then we need that as part of that.
Right,
that
and we
piece.
have it, but no one's interested in going through.
But we
Can we-
need it. We need that to be part of what we ask her.
Yes, yes.
Because, and it has
Yes.
to be.
Yeah, I
It
think,
has to
I
be
think you
something
may,
that the teachers
yeah.
can get. If
I
we're
think-
gonna
And do
have
the
her
teachers
come
know
back-
that you have this thing
No,
that's,
well,
that's unreadable, or?
Yes, Ms. Coddington and I were both
Okay, okay.
working back and forth. It just,
Yeah, okay.
we looked at it both and said, who has time to try and figure it? We
Okay.
even tried to blow it up. It just,
So on her first day on the clock, answer your question, and we'll be good.
yeah, that'll be part of what we request.
Yeah, I saw Fred.
I'll
I just
follow
want
up.
the answers so I can
Yeah.
follow
Yeah.
along the way I'm supposed to.
Absolutely. Fair.
Hi, Holly White. I just want to add a detail to Lori's assessment of that day. There was at least one question in which none of the answers were correct. She didn't even seem to be aware of that, but I looked up the law on the computer and I read her some sections, and then she was able to say, oh, that's right, actually, and she clarified. But I don't feel that was the only question that fit that category. There were definitely some questions where none of the answers were really accurate. I think that presentation, that game that she created, maybe just needed a little bit more fine tuning. Would you say?
I just think we need to be handed the answers to the questions.
That too, yes, but both, I think.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you so much. Any other comments? Sue?
Totally unrelated. I have some concerns about technology, and I just want to make you aware of what they are, and that we're still struggling. I know that things are starting to even out for the students, but teachers are still struggling with really old laptops that are incredibly slow, like minutes to open files. And we're not talking files that are on, we're getting from the internet. We're talking a PowerPoint that's on our computer. That's taking a full minute to open up. And I'm a little put off when please, the people that I'm working with are wonderful people, and I think they're doing the very best, and I'm not criticizing their department at all. I'm just letting you know the situation. I'm a little put off when there's an issue and I'm like, well, what's going to happen, for example, when the bulb in my projector goes for my smart board, because I'm dead in the water then, and, well, there's no money, is the response. And it's like, okay, I understand there's no money. Where are you finding it? Because I need my smart board projector to work constantly. And I was not, when the topic was brought up about a laptop being replaced, and I was told that the plan was, because I asked, well, what's the plan for replacing these? The plan was that eventually teachers will just bring in their own. And I was not the only teacher to be told that. Okay, I know of at least one other teacher. So that's just a little concern there. My real question though is, what's going on with the Smart School money? Because that was over a year ago that we all started that, and it's over $400,000, and we don't even talk about it anymore.
Well, the last meeting that I was at it was at a BOCES regional meeting that they talked about smart school money. There were districts that had started to spend it, but it hadn't been reimbursed yet. So, Matt, do you know anything
I
about
do.
that?
Sure.
Okay.
We had a meeting yesterday with Marie Haddad, who's our tech planner from the RIC, to get things going again. I believe there was an email that went out just recently for looking for people for a tech committee. The Smart Schools requires that you have a very comprehensive committee that consists of students, teachers. At this point, the only people we've had showing interest is teachers. We have just recently submitted our tech survey to the state through the MORIC. That's the first step, so that's been done. Jen Lobsher and I will be meeting with Maria Rocker. She's sort of the contact person through our MORIC that knows kind of where everybody is with their smart bond money and what to move forward.
Okay.
We've had an assessment done by our RIC of our infrastructure, and that's what we're looking at first and foremost. without the infrastructure, it doesn't matter what devices we have. And we have some infrastructure that's on its last legs. And that's what we're gonna be looking at first. So as far as exact timeline, I'm not sure. We have to have a public hearing. The plan has to go to the Smart Bonds Review Board. Districts are not, even those that are ahead of where we are, have not done anything yet. It's
That's the part that I was gonna make you very well aware.
frustration.
It's not like they say, here's the money.
That's
It's budget for the money, at the 400 for, in our case, 400 and change, let's call it 450 approximately. Budget it in your budget, spend it, and then the state will give you back the money. Now, the challenge with that is, I mean, it's good if you have reserves, the way you can do that. We came in under the tax cap last year, the year before, so I don't know that we were ready anyway. So the wisdom with a lot of the superintendents is wait and let's see who gets reimbursed first, because in our area, we can't afford to raise the money, spend it, and not get it back in a timely manner. So this is it's not the safest bet right now to move on. Now, we're moving on it slowly, but
Is there an end date? I mean, is there a time where it's too late
There's
to
not,
access it?
it's
Is
similar
there-
to, this is going back like 10 years or so ago, Excel money. It was known as Excel money. You know, one of the big criticisms of the Smart Bond itself was the state bonded $2 billion for 20 years for essentially things that have a useful life of free. So, you know, I know that a lot of, you know, we're going to look at, and it's going to be my recommendation, it's going to be Jen's recommendation, and I would imagine the Rick will be on board. We have to look at infrastructure first to be able to support devices. So we've had an assessment done. It's stuff that I can't speak specifically to because I'm not knowledgeable in that area. Switches, wireless capability, ports. I can't even attempt to get into detail, but we have some considerable infrastructure issues that need to be addressed first, and that's what we're looking into.
some of which I shared with the board last spring, and I'll be happy to kind of dig up that file and share it with the new trustees, because all indicators is that it's infrastructure, and I specifically have that information that would document what exactly is going on and why. And so, yeah.
I'd also like to add to what Sue said. It really is a situation of urgency. My computer has been slow for a few years, and it's frustrating, but I've lived with it. This year, it's something else entirely. When I asked, I was told my computer is 10 years old. It has 2 gigabytes of RAM. It's not equipped to deal with the internet today. So I'll have a few tabs open for my classes, and this year it's just very, very, not only frustrating, but it feels, I feel very guilty because so much time is wasted in every class. It can be something as simple as switching to one tab, or heaven forbid, opening a Google Doc that wasn't already open to a tab, and sometimes we will just sit there for 2 minutes, and the students will just sit and wait. But of course, they don't usually just, you lose them after around 15 seconds. So those types of delays are happening on a regular basis throughout all of my classes, and I can't say for sure if it's like that with all of the teachers. Now, I always have my Chromebook open on the side, because anything that I need to do that doesn't involve projecting or printing, I can do much more quickly on the Chromebook. But my classes all mainly revolve around the projector, and I often need to print things in the middle or at the end of class for students. So I told Sue the other day, I think I'm going to have to buy a computer to bring in here, and she said that she has heard that she thinks that's the plan, that teachers will just get so frustrated with the equipment that doesn't work, and more importantly, the time that is being wasted for students on a daily basis when you can't fit as much into the lesson.
Which I just want to, when I heard that, I'm just kind of thinking maybe we need to think about how we are spending some of the money, like maybe, the money on East Park or the money on the $6,000 that you just spent, and, to hear about, the light bulb or the computers and that. I don't know, it just kind of frustrates me when, I know that there are special ed issues to be taken care of, but, those are also issues that need to be taken seriously.
Sounds like this is a to be continued discussion, so thank you. Okay, any other, Travis?
I realize you guys are in a hurry too, but I'll be quick. I don't really need a response. A lot of what I just heard kind of touches on what I was going to talk about too. I've been coming to meetings for a few years now, and I actually heard the first opposition tonight. That's kind of exciting. That's wow. But with that being said, it seems like a couple years ago, this district was in dire straits. We were talking about doing emergencies, couldn't afford things. Money from the state wasn't coming in. Now things have gotten kind of better, and it seems like we're just kind of proposing to just spend money here, spend money there. I would urge you, and it seems like you are as a board, but also as an administration, to kind of ease up on not ease up, but take a careful look at how we're spending money. And especially when I hear these things, I'll give you a little woodworking analogy, if you will. What I'm hearing right now is it sounds like we're spending a lot of money on like remodeling the house, and we haven't touched the foundation yet. Touch on the computers. There's another little cliche for you. We just hired a new technology director. It's like asking a chef to fix a meal without being able to buy her groceries, or his groceries. So I urge you to do that. A lot of these things I'm for. I talked about Hunt for East Park. A lot of these things, and even the strategic planning, understand that in time that can save money. It can make the school better. The special ed position too. But it just seems like the more I've been hearing the last year or so, a lot of these things are great. They're great ideas. They're fresh. They're what we needed. But just pump the brakes a little bit sometimes, and I don't know if I've necessarily seen that before from the board until surprisingly right now. In the past, I've sat back, I've watched. I've seen a lot of, okay, yeah, sure, whatever you say. I'm liking that I'm finally seeing some questioning. I'm not doubting the reasons behind it, but it's good to have this discussion because it's brought up things that I didn't even know about, which is kind of alarming. So I'll give you that. I'll end with something I was going to kind of talk about anyway. I don't need to comment about it, but small scale and budget. I urge you to look at the arrangement with our collaborating agent in regards to our universal pre-K grant. The terms of that agreement have changed over the last couple of years that don't necessarily benefit what we're giving, and maybe it's going to need some financial tweaking, a rent, if you will. Other districts are kind of leaning that way. It's not necessarily they have that case is their universal agent or collaborating agent, sorry. But just if you as a board did individually as a whole, you might want to start it now because budget time will be here soon, but just take a look at the collaborating agency agreement in terms of our universal pre-K grant and see if you individually are happy with it, because I think it could use a look at it. And again, like I said, I understand a lot of these programs and things are great, but things can change, and the state doesn't always give you the money they promise. I understand we get reimbursements, it's a year later, but I'm excited for a lot of these things, but just please be cautious with it.
Yeah, so part of the expenditures, when the state gives you money, there are often strings attached. So we received a total, and I don't know if the check came for this year, $50,000. Last year, $25,000 for, but to help us because we were designated a focus district. And so with that, $25,000 you can use to try and identify problems within your organization as to why your students who are lower socioeconomic are scoring in the bottom 10% in New York State. And those numbers are questionable in the methodology, but that's part of it, okay? The $50,000 that we get this year is to do things that would improve your educational programming to help these students who are socioeconomically challenged or economically challenged to do better. So that's what that money is earmarked for. And trying to be creative and knowing that a rising tide lifts all boats, whether it's a 45-foot or a skiff, we think that, or at least the thinking was that using a strategic plan, certain money for East Park would fall into that, as well as some other things. So, I am probably one of the cheaper guys, you know. Like, I watch the dollar. I assure you, I watch the dollar. But there are some times when you can spend, and sometimes you make an investment. So, trust that. You don't have to trust. Feel free to ask me or ask, you know.
No, and you've been very helpful with that too, and, you know, I even understand, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but, and I'm kind of kicking myself here, because I really want East Park, I'm not saying don't do it, but not all of that focus grant is from the grant.
No.
Not all the money for it, there is some money from our budget that is being used for it.
Right, absolutely.
And like I said, I'm not really focusing on the East Park. Maybe it's because I have a bias for it. But it's things like this, you know, the strategic plan. It's things in general. And I'm not saying they don't need to be done, but just remember that, and I know you weren't here, Dr. Elson, and I know you've researched it all, but just remember that, and this is as a board and as an administration, that just, it seems like we're spending a lot of money. And this is a small district. Times in the area just aren't that great outside of the village, and even in the village. So just, and would a strategic plan help? Probably. I don't know. You guys are more versed in it than I am. Do we need it? Do we have to have it? Is it worth the money that we're talking to spend in it, or is some of that money worth buying new computers for our teachers? So there's what you have.
Thank you. Any other comments? Heard that.
Yeah, on that same issue, I was just wondering, have the teachers been told that the long-term plan is for them to bring their own laptops? I'd be interested to know.
I brought that up, and it was just when I was talking with, there was an issue that we were dealing with, and the comment was made that eventually the teachers will have to bring their own. It was not from administration, it was just from somebody.
Would any of the administrators like to speak to that?
I think, yes. Tonight was the first time that I heard that, and I've never heard of anything, even in public education in New York State, in the poorest districts, where you ask teachers to bring in their own things. So I can say unequivocally, I would never recommend that to them.
Except we don't have money in the budget to replace
I was gonna
computers.
say,
So,
can we
here
have,
is-
can we have a plan made before budget time so that we can have an understanding of what needs are? I understand infrastructure is important, and I agree with that. However, what are the other needs?
Right.
And how old are all of the computers, and where's that assessment? So if we could look at understanding all of the teachers, all of their computer needs, and how much they're old, we could start to make a replacement cycle.
Absolutely.
Because obviously we can't replace all the computers or all the technology in one shot, but it would at least be able to get us on, even if it was 5 a year.
I understand.
So if we can get that plan, I think that would be helpful for everybody.
Right.
To have a better
Right.
understanding.
Phase one of that was to get inventory. And if you recall, I certainly sent information with regard to step one was to start identifying who has what. There has not been a system in place. And one of the things that keep recurring is systems and processes. And so as you start uncovering things, you notice that there was no plan for replacement or even effectively distributed. Some things are not what you call tagged, which means it's tagged by the RIC or tagged by HCF. So those are systems and processes being put in place. The technician, the computer tech services person, when was hired, was given the elementary and secondary technology subcommittee recommendations, which were formed late last spring, and you told to use that as a guide to begin the work.
And that was from the teachers?
Well, it wasn't just, it was
and
whatever
parents
people
and-
were on the committees at the elementary and
those,
secondary level.
But that was to raise those concerns up, correct?
Oh, that and any other thing as it relates to technology.
right.
And that,
Right.
that was distributed to you at some point, maybe late last spring, maybe in the summer. But
Possible maybe the next board meeting to have one of the tech people come and just say, this is where we are, this is where things are going.
Yeah.
and we
that
can
would be great. And that happened today with the elementary, at the elementary faculty meeting in terms of first 38 days. And the That happened at the secondary maybe a week or so earlier. So, and one of the things on the agenda that I indicated, I think at the July meeting, is that she would be giving a report to the board after 3 months, because I knew that there was so much work to begin, but we can move that back, and we'll be talking about what it is exactly you want in the presentation, because that'll be helpful to her, because she might come
And
and
to
do
be able to have
Are
the
the-
community, teachers and all of us here
Yeah.
at one time, I think would be a.
Are the tech committees still meeting?
The email just went out for inclusion for people.
Okay.
So I know the first meeting has not occurred yet, but I did make it clear that we needed to have that by the end of the month. So that was completely articulated.
So, real quick, and before I say this to you, Dr. Ray, this isn't what I'm going to say a knock at you, because this issue's been going on before you got here. You have taken steps to alleviate some of it, but some of it still exists. More and more, I just try to sit back and watch. Like I said, I pick up things. This school is great. My concern as a parent my one problem I've had as a parent, and then I'm working on ways to address those in other channels too. As a whole, this district has a major communication problem from all channels, from board to administration, from administration to teachers, from board to teachers, from all your channels. There needs to be a better focus on the channels of communication, because I'm sitting right here, I can pick up the angst in the room. It's quite prevalent. There seems to be a lot of misinformation, you know. One person says one thing, well, the other person says they didn't hear that thing. It's time to look at some severe changes in how things are communicated, not just to public. I mean, I keep aware, I'm able to pick up on things, but it seems like as a school district, between all of your channels of, you know, employees and board members, it seems that there's good communication in each of those pockets. It seems like the elementary staff is quite aware of what the elementary staff wants. Secondary school, administration, board, it seems like there's no channel for appropriate communication between that. It seems like there's a lot of like assumptions that, well, they know it, well, they don't know it. I don't know who needs to address that, but there's definitely a communication breakdown in the school district. And I think it needs to be, a lot of these problems we talk about wouldn't even be problems if there was proper communication. And ultimately, as a district, we're setting an example for the students we teach. And if they're seeing there's a lack of communication, we're teaching them bad communication, other than that they know what bad communication looks like.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question to Paul's question about having a tech person here. And I don't even know if the tech person is the person who would answer this, but I've heard from various people, and I believe other teachers have heard too, that our tech budget is actually zero right now, that all the money for this year has already been spent. And what I've heard it was spent on is replacing, I think it might have been around 80 Chromebooks that were broken last year at the middle school level, but I'm not sure if it was 80, it could have been 40. But the majority of what I heard was to purchase new Chromebooks and iPads for the eSpark program. So what I've heard is that we are starting the year at a zero tech budget. Somebody brought up their projector bulb. I requested last October a new projector bulb because I have the light that says you only have a certain number of hours left, and I use that in every single class. I could not teach without it. And I was told that it would be not just need to be replaced, but that the whole unit would need to be cleaned, and they would do it over winter break or spring break. That didn't happen. It didn't happen over summer break. I submitted another request in September. I submitted another request 10 days later. I haven't even heard, I haven't heard anything. I think somebody said they heard back that we didn't have money for a projector bulb, but I didn't hear anything. But I am concerned if we don't have any budget money in September, because if my computer or projector were to die, I just don't know what I would do. And I'm sorry, I've spoken a few times. I don't want to.
No, that's all right.
But
we'll look into the budget numbers, okay, certainly. And are you aware about the light? Were you aware of that, Bill? Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
And Bill did try to advocate, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm sure I'm not the only one that he's tried to advocate for. But when we fill things out on the help desk, sometimes we we just don't ever hear a response. And again, I'm not criticizing the people in that department. From what I understand, they are doing the best they can with the staffing they have, and I think that the number of requests is well beyond what they could ever hope to address. So I want to be clear that
Okay.
I'm not criticizing the people.
Okay, thank you.
To come back just as a stopgap measure, I wonder if I know that COVID has a much faster replacement cycle, and I think on the previous occasion they have donated some of the equipment that was like 3 years old to the school to use, and that would still load a lot faster than a computer had said. So I wonder if they'd be willing to do that again, and it would be budget neutral, and just as that wouldn't replace a deep look into what we're doing here, but it might help. For the next couple of months, because these guys, you have to be in the classroom, like, tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I really sympathize with you. The other thing is the Emerald Foundation. I mean, they can't take over our tech budget, but I mean, they've been helping us.
they have
a lot.
salvage,
If we
and their
could
salvage
say, okay,
looks like our working
three new
space.
laptops, would help us hugely
Yes.
while we work on this new plan. I could imagine that they would, help out too. On a larger scale, I think as we are thinking about bringing in strategic planners, and as we maybe think about next year's district goals, I wonder if employee satisfaction could be a goal and part of the strategic planning process. Because again and again, the individual issue varies, but morale is low. We have to see that, and there are reasons for it. We just lost a fabulous chorus teacher last summer, and that was not just because she was commuting too far. We really have to look into that, and if we want to be a better school for everybody, that should be one dimension for the strategic planning process, for sure. That should be a strategic goal, and as a district goal, I would think possibly for next year's year.
Thank you. Any other comments? Could you state your name?
Yeah, I spoke plenty.
Yeah.
I'm Maura Tumulty. I'm the parent of a kindergartner and a 6th grader. I apologize for being late. I went to the wrong library. I wanted to just express some concern to the board about the K-5 tech rollout. I've been involved in the informational meetings about it. I've really appreciated Mr. Ellis and Dr. Austin having those meetings. But my concerns are not being assuaged, and if anything, they're deepening. I know this year it's not our district's money that's being spent, but if a pilot exits the pilot stage, at some point it will be our district's money that's being spent, and at present it's being formulated as for this year only. It's supplemental and not replacing key instructional blocks. That suggests at some point in the future it could be, because I have grave doubts about the goodness of these sorts of systems. I'm concerned about what at least looks to me like a really unclear plan for assessing how the pilot goes. You all sit in different places, you see different things, so it may be that there's all kinds of stuff going on that members of the general public are not aware of. But there just does not seem to be a clear, sort of empirically valid plan for assessing this pilot, and once it's up and running, there will be pressure from East Park to continue it. Once a train is moving, it's hard to slow it down. And so, because there still hasn't been stated what the assessment criteria will be, I'm nervous for my kindergartner at the beginning of his K-5 experience, and I'm breathing a sigh of relief that my 6th grader is on the other side of it. And I'm just hoping that conversation around this continues. I'd be really excited if the board would have more, maybe public meetings to talk more about this and how the pilot's going to be assessed and how information is going to be shared with the community. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your comment.
While we're airing out our concerns, something Ferdinand suggested, which is actually a great idea, ask Colgate for help with that. But in regards to that, we ask, and this isn't anything that has to do with this so much, but looking forward as a board, I ask you, we ask a lot from Colgate, from money to support, which is great, they're a community partner. My fear is that in time, we're going to become so in debt to their money, to their services, that they're going to have an influence over us as a district, where we might be hesitant to be like, if they want something. We might be hesitant as to like, I don't know. So I caution you as a board to seemingly consistently go to the university for financial help, not so much for not for consulting, because that's great. They're a community partner. Like you said, that's great when you can connect with your community partner, especially if it saves you money. But it seems like progressively over the years, and correct me if it's wrong, a couple years ago it almost bit us when we got $400,000 from that. Didn't it like knock us down into like a different tax thing, and it kind of screwed us if I remember right.
That was during the GEA, I don't remember anybody.
And I'm not well
speaking
versed
in a
on it,
negative
but
way like that.
my progressive fear, and I use fear in a large sense here, but just be careful when we go searching for things from the university alone and their little trail organizations, that in time, are we a public school or are we a private school through a channel? It's just a concern that's not just shared by me alone. So just please keep that in the back of your mind when things are going on, just to don't always go for them initially for help or ultimately. And the other thing too is we have to realize that we're a small school district. Yes, we like to compare ourselves in grades to Clinton, to Fayetteville Manulus. But we have to understand too, we have to know what we are in terms of the economics of the district. I've mentioned to you before, a lot of people use graphs. You drive around, beautiful houses in the village. A lot of people, especially new to the village, don't realize that in our BOCES district, correct me if I'm wrong, we have the highest percentage of free and reduced lunches, which is a reflection of there's areas in this school district, as small as it is, have really been hit by bad financial times. So especially when we hear all these proposals for money going out, keep in mind that there's families in this school district that are shocked by it. And I've spoken enough on that. So just the things I've told you tonight, please keep in the back of your mind as you go forward, because what I've gotten from the board the last couple of years is yes, 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 no question to things. And it's not that there's not good suggestions being made. You've made some great suggestions, some things that could possibly bring in money if searched right. Just remember that a few years ago, we were in dire straits, and keep that all in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments?
Could I make one more?
Yes, you could.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Alicia Simmons again. So in thinking about your comments, right, and in thinking about going back to the eSpark, and we spent the money on the iPads and so on and so forth, one of the things I learned from the first parent university is that one of the intentions would be maybe start letting the kids bring the iPads home and using eSpark at home time, which can be a great supplement, right, and doesn't detract from classroom time, which is a concern for some folks. One of the questions that I've had that I haven't heard addressed yet, and kind of goes back to systems, processes, pre-planning, thinking about our district, right? Current data indicates that people who live in rural areas, about 15% of those folks only have internet on their phones at home. Like, don't have a broadband connection, don't have Wi-Fi. And if you don't have those two things, then you have a $600 paperweight at home. The eSpark isn't going to work, right? And I have yet to hear, in thinking about data and information, does anybody know, thinking about our low-income kids, what percentage of them have Wi-Fi? What percentage of them are actually going to be able to use this tablet at home versus, I mean, so my kids, I teach at Colgate, right? Like, I have Wi-Fi, I have broadband, it's fine. But in thinking about, we're trying to really work with our at-risk students, our socioeconomically at the lowest end of the tier, right? If they don't have Wi-Fi, like, this isn't gonna work. And so I haven't heard any information about that. And so when I talk about my data concerns, you know, it ties right in.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yes.
Because I have raised that exact concern. Because my concern, again, I'm killing myself here because I want eSpark. I really do. But there are concerns about it, and I understand. I really appreciate your input too, because you've been very helpful for me to understand the other side of it. The concern as far as eSpark, I'm not sure if the board, what's left of you here tonight, quite has been fouled of it. It's using focus money and we all know what the focus money was
Yes.
for. You just touched on it, and I've asked this question too, and I've been told a couple of reasons why we can't do a couple of things. We're creating the possibility of making what brought us to the focus district, which was actually, we shouldn't have been, but we were. We're creating a possible culture for, instead of closing that gap, dividing that gap. We're making it greater just by the exact reason you talked about. There's going to be kids that have access to it. And yes, there's public libraries, there's a school district. I don't have to let anyone know that unfortunately there are parents and guardians out there which aren't even going to do that. They won't even give them a meal, let alone bring them to a library. So just please.
No, the last time I talked to a tech director hasn't been recent. It's been like a year and a half ago, and it was a surprisingly high number of folks in our district who are online. Kevin, do you have any?
I thought you actually had.
Yeah, and that
Yeah,
was,
you had
we
data.
did
We
have
were-
data a couple of years ago,
we
and
will
we were
certainly-
in the 90 percentile.
Yeah,
But
we
the
were.
question
But-
we will
Was
find
that a
that.
survey?
I know
The
it
question
is
is
now.
what kind of service?
That's-
Yeah.
Because you can ask the question, do you have internet at home? And now my
And it
phone,
might not
yes,
be
but that
high-speed
doesn't
internet.
let me do anything with the phone.
I just believe
So-
we have that data, and I think we'll.
And also, I think it's
we'll
been
find
brought
it.
up that, you know, we can't even create as a district hotspots for families because that's against state law, from my understanding, if I remember right. So it seems like that's definitely, maybe, teachers, I don't know if you would do, I mean, like, it seems like, that, yes, one-to-one technology is great, but if it's gonna be brought home, which is the issue here,
We need that.
we need that
data,
channel.
but
And the other
I know
thing
we
that,
have it.
I know you understand,
Okay. Yeah, I know we have it.
but, and it's great,
And
we
that,
got
you
one-to-one
know, that
technology.
question has been asked about other initiatives, flipped classroom, things like that, when we went into it. And, our number is surprisingly high, and, we do need to see if we
And
still
as-
have that and what kind it is, as you suggest.
Well, the other question is just from a statistical point of view, my wife will appreciate the fact I'm going to stats, but,
She'll explain it to you.
yeah, she'll have to explain to me. Let's say it's only 5% that don't have internet, but that 5% could be
Yes.
85% of the target group for focus, so therefore,
Yes.
saying that we've got 95%
No, I know,
compliant
we need to.
won't mean anything.
I think we have it.
And also, what scares me here is, I see what you said about, you know, and it's not verified. Okay, so there's kind of a unknown teachers. If you can get your own or if you can get your own computers, that'd be great. There are a lot of smaller school districts, which it's not a policy. That's just what happens. The teachers, and it's unfortunate. It is. The teachers, in order to teach like they want to teach, just like I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys spend a lot of your own pocket money on things. A lot of the smaller school districts and a lot of the lower economic areas, the teachers just, it's a given. They know they're not going to get it, so it's happened. So do we want to be those districts? Or do we want to be the district that's just going to pretend like that's not happening, but we're going to give our kids, which is great, and there's grant money, I understand that. The kids have access to great technology devices, but what I'm picking up tonight is it seems like that our teachers are way behind the curve as far as technology. They probably do more on their kids' iPads than they can do on the computers in the classroom, if that's the way I'm picking up tonight.
Well, I think what
But
is
it's
the.
not all of them.
Right.
Some teachers do have some updated and some
And
have.
is that fair to the other teachers?
Well, no, it's just kind of, there was a cycling,
I'm just thinking
there
of
was a
understanding
cycle.
that, isn't this all sort of part of what a strategic plan is about?
Yeah, so there are some things that you would expect to have in place to
Strategic plan,
begin
not in a
with, right?
strategic plan though, is it?
Well,
Technology.
there are some things that you would expect to have in place just because you're an organization.
Right.
Some of those things are just not in place here. So
Right.
there would, in a former role, there was a process where we replaced everyone on a cycle. That doesn't exist here. Well, in terms of teachers'
Right.
hardware, we didn't do laptops, we made sure Ms. Jacobson had a computer in her classroom every 3 to 5 years. That's when we would cycle them out. That's not part of a plan here. That just doesn't exist here. So I know that some teachers got new computers last year. That's good, but it wasn't necessarily part of a plan. Some teachers went and said, I'm on my last leg, and one was issued. So one of the things that we have to do is that. So one of the things that we asked the strategic planners to take into consideration are the subcommittee recommendations from elementary and secondary because that will be part of when we have this core team of people across the community representing different constituencies, where people get to kind of hear the information, see the reports, and see, well, where does this fit in? But for the practitioner, you know that you should already be in a cycle. So that's where we are. There was not one that existed already. It was much more.
Can we see a copy of the last technology plan that was in place? I mean, could we get that forwarded to us so we can maybe start
Great
there?
for that happened at the building level, or the one that gets submitted, because
How about both?
yeah, one exists.
Okay.
Okay, I
Okay.
can give you the one
All
that
right.
does exist.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question in terms of that? So there's a proposal for a strategic plan. Ultimately, it seems like technology for teachers is one of the things that would be a highlight on there. Do you need a strategic plan to tell you that? Not just to tell you that, but it seems like there's some pretty smart people here. Why pay somebody to tell us how to fix what we need when you can use that money you're paying them to help us figure out a plan? Everyone here is pretty reasonable, and it seems like there's some very smart people in here. It seems like a lot of this stuff, I'm not really sure what the district really needs a strategic plan for in some ways, because it seems like you're paying for somebody to fix something that really seems quite simple as a whole. I know it's very complex, but it just seems like we're shooting for the stars here, but we're not addressing the smaller things. Again, I know it's.
I mean, I think in many ways, my perspective of it is that, yes, we're shooting for the stars, but part of shooting for the stars is really needing to assess where we are, where we want to be, and how are we going to get there. And yes, there's a lot of really smart people in this room and in this building, and all of those things need to be heard. But I also, and this is personal opinion, I'm not speaking for anybody else, I also strongly feel that sometimes having that outside observer looking in can pick things apart in a way that the people in it aren't always able to do. And so for me, it's that having that outside observer who's talking to all of these people that are invested and hearing all of this. But again, with this organization that we've talked about tonight that has done this and been successful, to then take that knowledge and experience and that sort of outside view to be able to help bring that team back to a team with a common vision and a common goal and a common all of that. I mean, that's the way I look at that process.
My response to that would be that, and again, I'm not really sure exactly how these strategic plans work, which I understand as proposals, but it seems like the board and the staff, it seems like we're not even aware of what the problems are. And
That's one thing the strategic plan would do.
I think that's part of
And
the problem.
actually, yeah.
But why do we need to pay somebody to tell us what our problems are when they're so evident sometimes?
They're not always evident. I mean, they're not always evident when you're in the thick of things. That's why, I mean, my vote in opposition had to do with the process. It's not against the strategic plan. It's not obvious when you're in the middle of it.
Sometimes when you do it the other way, you end up putting out fires and you don't end up doing something that you talked about earlier, having all parts of the machine. The other thing that's really exciting about a strategic plan to me is that answers are generated from within. It's not the state coming in and saying you have to do this. It's us saying these are our priorities, these are the things that we see as problems, and these are the things that we want to do to fix it. It's using the intelligence that's in the organization.
And I'm not saying don't do it, I'm sorry. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that I'm having trouble as just, a community member fully understanding. You understand what I'm asking.
Right, I do. And I'm going to invite you to make an appointment.
And I hear you, I understand,
with
I
Eddie.
appreciate you explaining it to me like that.
Ferdinand, you have a question?
Yeah, I promise to shut up, but just one last thing on technology. I think where the rubber hits the road in the end is teachers and kids in the classroom.
Yeah.
And have it from a source that Mr. Raines and Latin book was actually better than Mr. Raines and a tablet. And Sue Lehman's math rocks, and I mean there are lots of teachers whom I respect so much. All I want to say is really what it comes down to, let's support these because you guys are our chief asset. Let's support our teachers and let's ask them how supported they feel.
Thank you.
Can I end with one quick thing?
Okay, and
And it'll be
I'm gonna
quick.
have to
All I
cut
wanna
you off.
say
You've
is
had
that-
more than your 3 minutes.
I understand. I was just gonna give you a thank you.
Okay.
for-
You're
You want a
welcome.
thank you?
I'll take it. We'll
I do-
take it.
I opened up a lot of criticism, but
No.
please
I-
understand that I sincerely appreciate all that you guys have done.
I do thank you for-
Administration, and as a board, it's all volunteer work. I really
I
appreciate that.
do thank you for
Please
your
don't take that the
comments.
wrong way.
And a couple of times you've said, keep it in the back of your mind, and I don't think that's where we'll keep comments. I think that we're gonna try and follow up on them. And I thank you for your comments, but I am gonna ask that tell you that your 3 minutes are up, Travis. Okay.
Terry, are my 3 minutes up?
You have 10 seconds, Holly.
Okay, I just want to say, and this is building on a couple of things that have been said, one relating to communication. I'm not saying whether I'm opposed or in support of the strategic plan. However, there are certainly ways that the board could be made aware of issues without going through the process, and this could have happened over the past several years. I want to say, and I'm sure you all understand this, that if this were, say, a year and a half or 2 years ago, you probably wouldn't be hearing anything from the teachers at a meeting like this. There's clearly been a culture shift, and people are willing to speak up. You're hearing a little bit now because of that, but there have been issues for years, and you haven't heard because we've been afraid to speak up at board meetings. And I guess I just want to say, if there was the attempt to reach out, we would be glad to have a contingent of us sit down with a contingent of you and share some of the issues. We don't necessarily need to wait years or go through a strategic plan, not that I'm saying we shouldn't. But I think we have to admit that there should have been opportunities for teachers to be able to present to the board what some of the issues were. And I think we're lucky it's happening now only because of the culture shift and a few of us who have been willing to speak up. I mean, for every one of us that's speaking up tonight, there are 20 people who don't even want to show their faces because it feels confrontational.
Thank you, Holly. Okay, I will ask for motions to adjourn to executive session so we can take the time to review the employment history of particular individuals. All in favor? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.